Some of you are going to think that this is a questionable video. I'm making this video today because I wanted to talk about the self breast exam that I did on myself when I felt multiple masses in my breast and in my armpit before I got diagnosed with breast cancer. You might think this is a thirst trap. It's always a thirst trap when it comes to me. Don't you forget it. I'm going to call this a booby trap. We are going to talk breasts and we are going to talk armpits. There's nothing to shave. So if you want that hair loss drug, honey, let me know. I had so many questions of people reaching out. First of all, women and men can get breast cancer. But I did have a lot of females reach out to me and say, how did you know? I have very lumpy breasts. Like, how do I know what's what? And all I can really say is my experience. I kept an eye on it and it got harder. It got larger. That doesn't mean that a small mass that didn't get large or didn't get hard isn't something to be concerned about, because it absolutely is. All right, let's get into it. It was the fall of 2020. I had just taken a shower and I was naked in the nude, in the flesh. And I always remember as a child, my mom had this like card hanging from the shower on how to do a breast exam in the shower. And I guess I was doing that, like not even aware that I was doing it, because I never was like, today's the day I'm doing a breast exam. I would just like feel around. I mean, that's what I was doing. I've always been a busty girl at a young age, developed rather quickly. I was not a fan of it. I grew up with boys. They didn't have these. What the hell? It didn't go over well in fifth grade, let me tell you, but we moved on. In my early 20s is when I would sometimes have some lumps that were a little suspect. I would bring it up to my gynecologist, and she would always say, you know, when you're on your period, there can be more prominent lumps. Let's check in a month, see if the lump is still there. And every time it would go away. So I know that hormonally that can kind of influence your lumpiness in a breast, in your breasts. And so that's something to be very aware of. Not just your menstrual cycle, but hormonally what is going on, super high stress levels, or anything like that. Okay. I am no doctor, I'm no expert. I'm gonna just say lumpy. So I had lumpy breasts. I ain't ashamed of it. You shouldn't be ashamed of it either. I was fairly healthy. I was training for a triathlon, so I was doing the swimming and the running. I hadn't started the cycling. I had just gotten my third job and I was applying to graduate school. I was even contemplating applying to medical school. And life was good. I was finally living on my own. I had just moved to Scottsdale. I turned 30 years old and I felt a bump. And I was doing this exam just like this, obviously, no clothes or bra on, and enough to where you lift the breast, enough pressure, and just kind of feeling with my fingertips going all around the breast and in the armpit. Why I was feeling in the armpit, I have no idea. There was an angel with me that day. My little mass in my armpit was right under this like pec muscle area. It's just this little bump and it was just tucked right under there. It was hiding right in there, right in there. My breast mass was on the outside, right out here. And I felt here, I felt there, I noticed it. And I want to say the feeling of it was just noticeable. It was firmer than the other areas. It made me kind of put up like a little question mark. And then I just kind of went on. 1 week, 2 week would pass. I would kind of remember, like, oh yeah, what's going on? Lumps were still there. The one in my armpit was like smaller than a pea, was in my armpit. The one on my breast was like a grape. And so I just kind of would feel that it was firm. It was harder than the rest of the tissue, but not like rock hard. Weeks would pass, months passed. The lumps were larger, they were harder, they were very noticeable. So I moved to Scottsdale August 2020, turned 30 September 2020. Felt the mass around that time frame. By December 2020, the one in my breast was at least the size of a golf ball. The one in my armpit was at least the size of a large marble. And it was hard like a rock. And I had a friend feel it. He freaked out and was like, get that away from me. I was like, you need to get that checked. And by January 2021, I went and got it checked. I will say the provider that I went to go see gave completely wrong information. She said I have nothing to be concerned about. She said most times the tumors, if it's cancer, are painful, which mine were not painful. And she just really gave, it was a very poor experience. She felt my breast in the exam and she didn't even feel the mass in both areas. And she said, oh, okay, yeah, you'd have very fibrous tissues, nothing to be concerned about. And I'm like, you actually didn't feel the mass. Like, I put her hand on it. She's like, oh, yeah, now I feel that. Yeah, that's definitely noticeable. And then I put it on the armpit. And then she kind of was like, okay, yeah, we have to get a mammogram and ultrasound. And I will say that it's really important to remember that a provider that you go see is human. I'm not going to hold it against her. Honestly, I don't lose sleep about that ever because she did the right thing by sending me off to get imaging. And that's really all you can ask for. So I went and I got a mammogram and ultrasound, and then I went back for a 3D ultrasound and a biopsy. They biopsied 2 or 3 different areas in my breast and in my armpit, and that confirmed that it was breast cancer. A biopsy is what's most likely going to confirm it. I have heard of scans confirming cancer, but in my mind, I think really taking a piece of it, seeing it under the microscope, is what would actually confirm it. But what do I know? I obviously didn't go to medical school. For the record, there is no provider yet that can feel your body and tell you that something is confirmed or denied a disease. So if I have this massive tumor, which by the way, by that point, it was the size of at least a golf ball, between a golf ball and a lemon, my mass. And the one in my armpit was the size of a large marble. So for her to say it's nothing to worry about because it's not painful, I later learned most times it's not painful. I mean, my liver was covered in tumors and I didn't have any side effects. The only side effect that I had that made me go to the doctor was that I had a mass in my breast and my armpit. I had no other issues going on. The only underlying conditions that I had were ADD and exercise induced asthma. That was my experience. I realized I constantly need to be feeling my body so that if something is concerning, I can bring it up. We can get it double checked. And that's just the way the world works. You have to be on top of your own body. You can't expect to get 100% service from a human because ultimately none of us are giving 100% at all times of the day. And when it comes to your health, you need the evidence. And so going to the doctor is the first step. You need that referral. But if something doesn't sit right, a provider cannot feel you and tell you you do not have cancer. We're not there yet, people, but how fucking cool. And I can't wait till that happens. Until then, you need the papers, you need the evidence. Get the scan, get the ultrasound, get the biopsy. You have CT scan, MRI scan, mammogram, ultrasound, 3D ultrasound, PET scan, bone scan. I'm sure there's something else I'm forgetting. Do what you got to do to confirm whatever it is, that it's not something that is life changing. I really hope that this video was helpful. If you want to contribute to my OnlyFans for this whole experience that you guys got to partake in, I don't have one. Maybe I should work on one. Somebody hook me up. Until then, you're welcome to send any money to my Venmo. I take ass, cash, or grass, Venmo, PayPal, Cash App. I'll take your firstborn child. Go prioritize your health and get things checked.